everyone. Good afternoon. I'm so excited to be here, and I'm so honored and privileged that I have the opportunity to share a story that I hope after you hear the story, will remind you not to take your education for granted ever again. So in 1955, a man by the name of Govind Sharan, this individual right here, set sail for the United States in search of something. Govind, who hailed from a small town called Aurangabad, Bihar, worked as a teacher. But after working as an educator himself for 4 years, he sought something more for himself. He sought his own education. And despite already having a bachelor's degree in mechanical engineering, Govind felt that the opportunity to get a world-class education abroad could change the course of his life. And so, like many others chasing the American dream at that time, Govind began a 1-month sojourn by sea to the United States on a ship called the Queen Mary. Life changed pretty drastically after that, as you can imagine. Govind actually went on to finish his bachelor's degree again in mechanical engineering. I guess he really loved education, that he had to do a bachelor's degree twice. And he went on to get his first job in Chicago, Illinois. Now, soon after, Govind's wife, who you can see here, joined him. She was still in Bihar at that time. She joined him in Chicago, where the couple ultimately ended up settling down, having a family of their own, and becoming citizens of the United States. Life was certainly not without challenges, though. They didn't have this picturesque American life. In fact, Govind was often unemployed. His family lived on welfare and food stamps, and the level of cultural acclimatization in a foreign country was devastating. Still, he persevered, fighting for a better quality of life for his family, especially his 2 sons, who he would hope would go out in the world and make something of themselves. It was for that reason that he insisted that my sons have to get a quality education, because he knew from his own experience that could change their lives for the better. And he was right. He was absolutely right. One went on to become a mechanical engineer, and the other, a doctor of medicine. Life for Govind's sons changed drastically for the better. They got stable jobs, stable income, got married, settled down, and had children of their own. Govind's grandchildren went on to become successful lawyers, doctors, and even entrepreneurs. They went on to become their grandfather's wildest dream. I went on to become my grandfather, Govind Sharan's wildest dream. My grandfather's story is a fragment of infinity. It's a small piece of the vast, limitless potential that education unlocks. Think about it. The decision of one man in pursuit of knowledge, in pursuit of a degree, changed the course of his life, his family's life, and generations to come. That is the power of your education. It's not only an investment in your future, but it's going to provide you a ripple effect that extends far, far beyond your own lives. You just don't know it yet. I didn't know it. He didn't know it. Now, if you can't tell from my accent, I grew up in the United States, where the value of education is definitely not as important as it is here. But in my family, a quality education was exceptionally important, and you probably understand why now. But education in America was not cheap. In fact, the cost of my undergraduate degree at NYU was 2.5 crores. That was 16 years ago. The cost of that education today is roughly around 4 crores. That's really astronomical when you think about it. So here my family was in a conundrum. Well, education is great, but how do we pay for it? And I was stubborn and adamant that I was going to get my degree from my dream university. I know we've all been in that position where we really want something and we don't listen to anyone, including our parents. So that was me. My parents were gracious enough to have some savings put aside for my education. I took a sizable amount in education loans and I worked 2 jobs all throughout college for 4 years. You see, up until this point in my life, I knew of the transformative power of education. I am Indian by blood, right? And I knew through anecdotes of my grandfather and my father that, yes, education is powerful, it can transform. But that was really the first point in my life where I realized, yikes, education is so expensive. It comes with a price tag. Well, it was the price tag of education that forced me to make a very tough decision later on in my life. And that was dropping out of a master's degree at an Ivy League university. I don't regret that decision. But that decision, along with my grandfather's journey, left a very, very important lesson. One that would change the course of my life and everything I would do henceforth. Which is, yes, education is absolutely transformative. It is powerful, it can uplift. But the cost of that education can prevent those that really deserve to those that really need it. Those two things just didn't add up in my mind. How is something so powerful, so beneficial for society, so lucrative, and not accessible at all? That was the spark. That was the spark that brought me here to you all, that led me to start a company that I co-founded in India that helps Indian families and students just like yourself manage this affordability issue around the cost of education. Now, I think no one can contest that India is a nation with infinite possibilities, right, and potential. We are the world's 5th largest economy. We have a rising middle class. We have a hunger and aspiration for education, everything under the sun, right? We have seen enrollments in higher education increase in the last decade by 55%. I mean, that's tremendous. There's a palpable hunger for knowledge to grow, to contribute. And outside of honoring this man's legacy, that's really why I'm here. India is the future, but it's also the now. But you know, when I started the company that I started, when I started EduFund, my co-founder, Arindam, and I started looking at a bunch of data. And we saw a very different narrative that stood out to us that was also pretty shocking, right? One that you may hear from your friends and other people around you. The reality was the cost of education was skyrocketing across the board. Forget education abroad, but education in our homegrown nation was going up exponentially. We looked at data from primary schools to secondary schools, college, postgraduate education. The data saying costs are going up. This thing that we call education inflation was rising much faster than the cost of daily goods, household inflation at 10% a year. It was scary. Now, what was intriguing though is despite these costs going up so much, Indian parents will still go to the end of the earth to educate their children, right? We will spend lakhs on a training course. We'll spend 1 or 2 lakhs on nursery fees. It's in our blood. It's in our DNA to do that. In fact, one statistic that perhaps surprised me the most is Indian parents spend on average 11 times our GDP per capita on education. That's one of the highest in the world, by the way. Despite being an emerging economy, despite a lack of resource in some cases, we spend the most on education. That's how committed our parents are to making sure we get a good education. But despite that, right, despite going to the end of the earth, the point was, no matter how expensive this education became, Indian parents were absolutely committed to making sure that you are sitting right here, to make sure you're sitting right there, right? And when I think of my own grandfather's story, I think of how that's a testament to the power of education, just like you all. I think about how one decision led me to start a company that's given me the privilege to work with over 2 lakh families over the last 5 years here in India and witness some of those aspirations turn into a reality. That's the greatest gift that I could get. I think of families like the Kulkarnis, who came to us when their daughter Ruvi, who you can see here, was just 2 months old. She was just born. And her parents told me, look, we didn't get the chance to pursue our dreams in the way that we wanted to because our parents didn't have the money. We were limited from certain aspirations, and we want to make sure. We want to make sure that she doesn't have that same reality. I think of a father like Mr. Chauhan, who's an auto rickshaw driver, who I met on my way to work one day in Ahmedabad. And I was a fresh entrepreneur who had just started my company. And like any hungry entrepreneur, everyone that crossed my path, whether it was a rickshaw driver or a gardener or a school teacher, had to know about what I was doing. I was adamant, I was persistent. And I talked to him and I asked him, do you have kids? What are you doing? And he said to me, people like us are often left out. And I'm very proud of who I am. But no one talks to us about these things. And despite being how proud I am of the man I am, I want to make sure that my kids don't have the same reality that I do. I want to make sure they get an education and that the course of their life changes forever. It's been 4 years. Every month, he puts 3,000 rupees away, just like your mom encouraged you to do, in an account, so that one day in the future, that money, it compounds and grows to something. I don't know where it's going to go, but I do hope it'll create more Govind Sharans in the future. You see, these stories, these fragments of infinity, they remind us that education, your education, is more than just a mark sheet. It's more than just a degree. It's more than just a diploma. It is power. It is your freedom. Because your education is not going to just change your life. It's absolutely going to redefine them. It may even redefine your legacies forever. And just like you, I am confident there are more Govind Sharans out there in some distant, remote village of India, daring to dream, hoping. And it is up to us, and it is up to me, to make sure that dream doesn't remain a possibility, but becomes a reality of infinite ones. Thank you.